Hey, how's it going? I wanted to talk about indie game accounting, or I guess just in general, accounting for a small business that happens to make indie games. I'm a first time small business owner, co founded Black Vein Productions with my buddy Scott, and it's a hobbyist business, right? This is something that we do in our free time after work. I'm full time game dev, and with that being said, it wouldn't be full time even if we wanted it to, right? We really don't make a lot of money. We've been in the red for quite some time now. But even if you're losing money, it's important to do your accounting. And I would say, with that being said, it's all the more important that, since this is a hobby for us, we want to be spending as much of it doing the stuff that we love, which is making games. We don't want to have half our time going to accounting and doing the bookkeeping on that. So, I found that even though it was a very small percent of my time, it was a lot longer. The process was taking a lot longer than I would have liked. So I have just recently sort of updated the format. I changed all my sheets and made them look really beautiful. And I'm really happy with where it is now. And so I'm making this video not only to share sort of our process, talk through basically how we do accounting, but also to ask other indies in the space, what is your approach and how might, maybe you think our approach could be improved. Maybe you think, you want to share what your process is. I'd love to hear from you. So with that being said, let's just jump right into it. So we are completely on Google Sheets now. A lot of the stuff that we do is on Google Sheets. And basically it's a two-step process now. So this giant Google Sheets document, I guess, has a bunch of little sheets. And this is what the process used to look like from 2016 to 2017. And it slowly evolved over time, losing a lot of the color. And also just changing, I guess, the way we approached it. So previously, I would have like all of my expenses and then sort of like the overview in one report. And now I've split it into two reports, and that's already, I could tell, going to save me a lot of stress. And just so you understand sort of the mechanics of the business, two contributors, Scott and I, we have a variety of contractors who we also have to pay. And often we're paying out of our own personal accounts for those. And then we want to keep track of how much Scott or I have paid so that we could pay them back and then share profits beyond that point. Haven't been many profits recently, but that's usually what the process looks like. And previously we didn't have a dedicated business account for the business. Now we're working, we went to Delaware recently actually to get a business account through Chase. That'll be our company business account. But prior to that, pretty much it would just be each of us would pay out of our own personal accounts, and then we'd have to be individually refunded. So I think if we can get a lot of stuff on the company card, that's going to make things a lot easier because it's one less payment that needs to happen, right? One less person that needs to get paid back because it's just coming straight from the BVP coffer. But in general, I would say that's kind of what the flow looks like. It's me or Scott pays for a service, me or Scott needs to get paid back, the company makes money, and then from the company profits, if any, each of us would get paid basically an equal amount, minus, paying back whatever it is we personally expended. And so I'm not going to go through our old process because, frankly, I don't think it's very good. And that's why I'm really happy we've settled on this new process. So I'll just talk about that. So the new process has two sheets. The first is the expenses and reimbursements ledger. And then the second is the financial overview. And so I actually did take an accounting class in college, but I have this. So again, we have an external accountant, right? We work with Marsicovatiri and Calvecchio. Particularly, we work with Calvecchio. And man, we love this accountant. He's great. One of the things that we really appreciate as first-time small business owners and working with this accountant is he's extremely patient and sort of takes his time to explain things that we don't understand. I'm sure we have asked him a lot of stupid questions like, do we need to give a W-9 to Scott? Are we employees of our own company? Lots of silly stuff like that. The answer to both is no. But he's patient. He walks us through it. And if you're looking for an accountant, I mean, this is a firm, I guess. This is a great firm for us. We also have, this is somewhat relevant. We have a Delaware representative. We have a Delaware representative, right? Because we are operating at times out of state. So we work with V Corp Services. is exactly how it sounds like it's spelled. And V Corp's great. We also really love V Corp. Obviously, they work with a lot of small businesses, and I'd say of all our professional relationships, they're definitely one of the most dependable, I guess, supporters. I don't know. They're great. We really like V Corp. And so basically, this process is even if you're going to use an external accounting firm, right, you still need to keep track of your own numbers so you know who to pay and you know where the money's going. So even with that being said, this is everything we do internally, and then from that we kind of can put together an external report, which is often a very simplified version. So the Calvecchio gets something that looks like this, which is just you know, a very high level overview rounded to the nearest dollar of income, expenses, stuff like that. But from our side of view, you know, we need to know a lot more specifics. And right now we think maybe it's even a little too specific. So this is something Scott and I have been arguing about recently, but I'll talk about that in a moment. So let's go through each sheet. The first one is the E&R ledger. So all this does is it talks about expenses and if we've paid people back for their expenses. So the financial overview has an expenses section, but there's just so many line items in expenses, I think it made sense to kind of pop this out and have its own dedicated sheet for that purpose. So here's what that looks like. We start with however much money we haven't reimbursed from the last year. So we currently owe Scott $25 for something he bought in 2019. And then that starting total is sort of its own line. And then I have a sort of a bolded summary for each quarterly total. So we just finished up Q2. I'm recording this as of July 9th. And then Matthew, obviously myself, I spend a majority of the money. So just because a lot of it's coming out of my account. So something like I started the year with the company owing me about $300. At the end of Q1, I accrued another $300. And at the end of Q2, I accrued another $300. So right now the company owes me something like $863. And then these red lines basically it says red, like to do. That just means I haven't been reimbursed yet for this expense. And so my goal here is that if we make a bunch of money and then we're going to do a lump sum payment out to me of like, I don't know, like $300, then we would mark all these to-dos with the same receipt. So basically it's like, okay, those $300 will cover the starting expenses that we had to reimburse Matthew for 2019. Okay, and it's very clean. I love the format. I love the nice colors. I found something similar online, and I sort of adopted it to our process. But the other thing that you'll notice here is pretty often it'll be the value, the date, and then a link to a receipt. So in some cases, this is Ghiazzo, just to an exact receipt. I try to give more context if possible for a lot of these receipts. But other times it'll just be like an image which I've screen capped and then circled. So I really love that for two reasons. We'll get into the second one later, but I guess for the first reason, it's just because I love to kind of see where the money's coming from and have that receipt quick to grab. Also, I don't have to keep track of any paper receipts, which is great. But then the second reason why I like that is because particularly later on when we're recognizing income, a lot of this stuff is like, okay, where is it from and where is it going? So for example, for Unity ads, I can see, okay, if I want to see the Unity payouts, it's in the Unity dashboard under the Operate page under the Finance tab. And that's where I would see that information. And so that's all represented in the screenshot, so I could quickly navigate there. The only thing better than that would be a direct hyperlink, which I also thought about having a separate column for that, but I decided having just the visual receipt would be good enough. So this is Matthew's expenses. And then finally, this is BVP expenses. So BVP expenses are stuff paid straight from the company card. BVP doesn't need to be reimbursed. That's not applicable. And then just overall, we can see how much do we spend. Again, this total is kind of nonsensical. I don't think it's super helpful. Maybe I just delete it because I keep saying that. But the thing is that it's combining how much we owed of last year. And also it doesn't take into account whether things are reimbursed. It's sort of just a silly total. I would just, maybe we'll just delete it. I don't know. I'm just going to delete it. Oh shit. What did I do? I just added 1,000 columns. All right. So yeah, there's no real purpose for a total there. But there is when we're looking at it from a quarter-to-quarter standpoint in 2020. Okay, cool. So now this is the second sheet, which is the financial overview, where we're going to talk about sort of the starting finances, the income, the expenses, the earnings, distributions, and then the ending finances. And the way to read this sort of is top to bottom for Q1, and then you read it top to bottom for Q2, top to bottom Q3, Q4, and so on. So I'll just walk through one as an example. We started Q1 of 2020 with $500 in the bank account with a debt to Scott of $25 and a debt to Matthew of $270. Now, over the process of Q1, this is how much money we made. We made about $200. Pretty much all of that coming from IAP on Apple for No Stranger. So just if you're not familiar with our portfolio, we have a mobile game called No Stranger, which is on Android and iOS. It's really the only game that's made money for our company right now, and it's a free-to-play game, but it has ads. However, the ads are broken right now on Apple because it has an integration which I haven't been able to fix yet. I know it's been 6 months and it's like a mess, but this is what happens when you're doing a business as a part-time job, right? And right now we have an Apple computer. It doesn't matter. So anyways, that's our IAP right now from Apple. That's pretty much our only income. We've made some money on some of the other accounts. So for example, it might show here. Yeah, so for example, we made $80 in Unity ads, which is, I guess, all being serviced through or all being provided to our Android platform right now. But the thing is that a lot of these companies, and sometimes you can customize it, but I have it almost always set to it's not going to give a payout unless it reaches $100. And for most companies, that is the requirement. And so basically, I'm not going to realize the income unless it's actually been sent to our account. So with $80 sort of sitting there as like maybe I could claim it eventually. I mean, it's been 6 months and they haven't sent it yet, right? So it's like we need to wait until we pass that 100 threshold and then it will be sent to us. So as of right now, this is all the money that was made this quarter. So that's where the income comes. And then the two links here, and I'm trying to do this a little bit more where I've been doing a link of where I get the income. But if I'm actually going to be receiving the income, I sort of like to have two links there. So the first link will be sort of where it's coming from. So this is the Unity dashboard, and this is sort of where the money is coming from. And then the other link is where the money is being sent. So this is my savings account, and this is where you'll see that the last payment that Unity sent was $100 here. So that's basically the relationship of sort of having a reference of where it's coming from and where it's going. Expenses. So expenses are basically what has the company paid for out of pocket. It doesn't count stuff that Scott or I have paid for unless we're being reimbursed, right? Because from the company standpoint, if Matthew buys something for the company, oh, that's wonderful, not an expense to us. Now, if I have to reimburse him, now that's an expense. So I'm not including anything other than the reimbursements that the company's actually paying, out of its pocket. So basically, we're just looking at our, also, I mean, this is not really relevant, but I thought it'd be nice to have a little row here for sort of our debts, as it's being affected, to both Scott and Matthew. So I have sort of like the new debt to Scott, and I guess it's not the new total. This is sort of the, additional. This is sort of the additional just for this quarter. So maybe that's a better word here. Additional. And again, I'm sort of like iterating on this as I go because it's sort of our new process, and I really like it so far. I'd love to know what you guys think or if it can be improved. But sort of that's where the expenses sort of pile up. So we spent like $200 this quarter, but nothing last quarter, just because we're making a new game this quarter. So we bought some assets online, Fiverr, Unity Asset Store, stuff like that. Earnings is basically we set aside 25% for taxes, and then we have whatever the net is after that, I guess. And that is what we can use to pay off our debts, hopefully. But right now, I think it's just going into like the BVP coffer. Distributions or profit sharing. This is when we actually would pay our shareholders or Scott and Matthew. Haven't been collecting money from the company for some time. As you know, we're losing a lot. But that's okay. This is where we would make some money if we had some to make. And then the last thing is ending finances. So this is basically at the end of the quarter, where are we at? So the debt for Scott has stayed at 25. The debt to Matthew has only increased to 567. But we also have more money on hand now. So now we have a cash balance of around $600. And, the next quarter happens, and now the company has made about $50. The Matthew is owed about, $900 now. and Scott still, we owe him about $25. So that's sort of how that updates over time. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So just to, and I understand, you might be interested in having a similar format, or at least if I was watching this video, I'd be like, oh yeah, how would I get that? There's nothing really like proprietary here. I mean, it's just maybe took me like an hour or two to like get all the links in place and make it look nice and get some cool colors and sort of parse out the sheet. But there's nothing like special here. If you have Google Sheets, you can do the same thing. Just take some time. If you're interested in the fonts, which I would be because I love making it look nice. This is Montserrat, and then this is Roboto, and then and yeah, they're just pretty much bolded or not. And yeah, so that's it. So this is our new process for the finances, and already I would say it saved me a lot of headaches. Like normally, going through the finances and like trying to think through it has taken me like maybe twice as long as it's taking me now. And even then, it's not that much, right? Like I would say, there's no way finances takes up more than 5 or 10% of my entire job. But with that being said, I really wanted to make this video because after reaching out to some social media, it seemed like nobody was really talking about what is their process for recording their indie finances and how do they do the bookkeeping, if at all. And so I really wanted to make this video just to share sort of our process and hopefully start a little bit of a conversation to hear how it could be improved, or what are you doing? I'd love to know in the comments, what is your process and how might it be a little bit different? And do you do accounting 100% on your own? Do you use something like, I forget the service, but it's like, that taxes at home service, QuickBooks, maybe it's called. Do you do that? Or do you also go to sort of an external firm in order to meet with an accountant? So I'm sure there's going to be a different balance and needs for everybody, and every business is obviously unique. But I'd love to hear from you and sort of understand your experience as well. So thanks so much for watching. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed, and if you want to see more game dev content, subscribe. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.